All right, so before we get into this video, just know that there were a lot of mistakes made earlier on. And so that's why you have all these different sets of parts together. On this table in front of us is the last month of headaches that I have had. Multiple orders of parts, not because of a dealer error or anything like that, but mainly because I failed to diagnose this properly. And I'm going to show you all how you can diagnose it more properly and not be waiting on parts for almost a month like I was, because I went to go put it together and then realized that I didn't have the parts I needed because something else was wrong. Or I caused something such as these clutches where I was tightening it and I didn't have everything lined up properly and it bent one of these clutches. So at that point, we just replaced them all. Or like when I lost one of the wave springs. You'll see it all more in detail. Let's get into the video. Hey everyone, I know we're a little bit behind. This was supposed to be the next video after we split it originally, and unfortunately other things came up and we just didn't have the chance to get to it because the weather was right for spraying, so we went to spray for folks, and then we fixed some things on the skid steer. So a lot of different things were going on that needed to be done at that moment. We knew that we had this big rain coming, and so far we've gotten about 3 inches of rain, and it's still raining. It is what it is. We're making the best of the weather we've got. If you couldn't tell from that quick little snip from our garden, everything is very wet and very saturated. So we've got everything here, all of our little baggie of parts. All we really needed was seals and a tube, and then the other tubes, if we can't get them to seal, we will have to get new ones. But we don't have to take the tractor apart to fix those ones. Those ones we can actually take out from that side. We don't have to split the tractor, nothing. The other one that we got brand new, thankfully, thank God they had that one, because that one we would have to actually, it'd be a lot more of a headache because we'd have to take the fuel tank back down and all this other stuff to get to it. The other side, far simpler. The first seals we're going to replace are the ones right here on this shaft. Not exactly sure what they're necessarily called. However, they're a piston ring package that you can get from Agco. And before we get started in this rebuild, everything that we're changing in this setup, including the tube that I broke, was $144 and some change. These seals, you know, especially if you look, like you can see how far out that these should be. And when you look at it, they're definitely not as far out as they should be. That is why we're going to replace them. Now, because we don't really think these are the culprits, would it have mattered if we didn't replace them? No. But the thing is that $150 doesn't even pay for, it pays for about half of the hydraulic fluid that it took, or that we have to drain out of that tractor to split it. So at this point, if let's say I didn't replace them, and these really are the base cause, because I don't have a way to prove whether they are or not. Now I'm pretty confident it was the flywheel like we talked about, or the fly ball like we talked about in the last video. However, I'm already here. I don't want to split this tractor again. It's time consuming. I'm going to do my best to show you how to do these. So what I have done here is just simply unclip them, and then from there they pop out, kind of. Almost there. Oh, dang it, so close. You'll also notice, or I think you will if this focuses, the very end of these have, you know, what you can kind of see as a clip, right? And so when you put this in and then you hook it, now it's caught on itself. We're going to take these out and we're going to set them in order of how we've taken them out. So I'm putting them up there, and as I take the rest out, I'll do the exact same thing, and we'll continue until we have all of them out. Whew. It's a little bit tricky to get them back, to get the new ones on, but it's not awful. So if I held this one in against the actual metal piece back here, I would hold this one and it'll end up being out from it like that. It'll be past it, and then when I let off, it'll be behind it like so. Hopefully the camera focused and got that. But like I said, so it's out. I'll hold this one in so they'll be offset. I'll get it past it. Oops, get it past it, and then I'll let go and they'll be hooked. All right, we've got all that done. We're gonna take these rings and we're gonna set them in the bag. That way we know what they are, or I'm gonna set them on top of the bag because I can't get them in right now with my fingers in these gloves. So real quick, we're just gonna go through what these are. So this is the wave springs. This is gonna be your clutch plate, and this is your separator plate. With all that being said of what is what, when you're putting these back together, it is important that when you took them apart, you put them next to each other and laid them out to where the same clutch disc is going with the same separator plate and the same wave spring. Now, if for some reason you didn't do that, match them up the best you can, but ultimately it can cause issues because those two items wore together, or those three items wore together. Ultimately, it should not phase a whole lot, but it could cause slippage and other issues. So again, match them as best you can. This notch is there so that when you take this out of the case of the transmission, it has that notch in there so you can pull it out without having to disassemble a bunch of things. Obviously, you've probably already realized that at this point, but if you're watching this video and trying to figure out how everything goes apart, how everything comes apart and how everything goes back together, that is useful knowledge. The book does mention it, but again, that is very useful knowledge. Now, we've already replaced all the seals that we wanted to replace inside of here. The next thing we need to do is we're going to put this input shaft for the transmission back on here, and then there's a nut. There's a nut and a washer we got to put on there. I lied, no washer, just a nut. Now this nut is a 2-inch diameter nut, so you will need a 2-inch socket. And when you start threading it in, you're going to notice that it's kind of bound on some stuff, and that's because of this end right here. So if you look right there at the end, you can see how it's got a couple of either punches that they hit it with to make it to where kind of like act as a lock washer. Notice how not flat this one is? That's because just a few seconds ago in your time, I made a bad mistake and I crushed, well actually, I guess it was like that. I crushed this down while I was tightening the bolts up for that. So Gage is going to correct my issue. We kind of looked at it as a sign from God, so to speak. Show it like this. So right here, this is a brand new clutch disc. And this is ours. Now, granted, yes, this one is warped now because I bent it. However, right here on the sides, you can see that there's some clutch material that has clearly gotten damaged over the years, or is worn, or whatever you want to call it, and is definitely not in mint condition. This one doesn't have that because it's brand new. But the other thing that was different is that this new one, I think you'll be able to see it here. Oops. This new one's a little bit thicker, like probably not even a 1/16 of an inch thicker, but it is definitely, it's a thickness that you can see when you're looking at them side by side. And so I say that because this is obviously missing material and then some damaged material and then plus the custom bend I put on it. So at that point we decided that we'd hit up Allstate Ag, and we ended up buying 9 brand new clutch discs from them. We have brand new clutch discs, brand new wave springs, a lot of new seals, not all new seals, but most of the seals in here are brand new. So Gage is going to put this back together for me so I don't make another mistake. So this right here is what's called the clutch, or the piston, right? And so there are seals inside of here and there's seals on the outside of here, and it moves inside of the housing of the actual, moves inside of this housing right here, or in this one, this housing specifically. And essentially what happens is when pressure is applied, it pushes this forward and it pushes against all the clutch packs. I'm going to show you a clip right here is when it dawned on us that that was our issue, and actually why we didn't have low range at all, because we originally thought the low range issue was from a fly ball that was stuck, because we did have one that was pretty hard to move and we got it to move. But when we put everything back together in this test series, you'll see right here, you can see that when we apply air, the low range doesn't move, but the high range and the mid range all move like they're supposed to. So these seals, and on this one, I think you'll be able to see it, but right in here, there's a gap in there where it's broke. And then again, back here, there's a big gap where there's a chunk of it missing. And I don't even know where it's at. We looked for it, never found it. So we're gonna take a dental pick, we're gonna pop these out Now these are part number 70261097, and they're kind of difficult to get out, as you can see right here. You know, you can pry it loose with the dental pick, but they're wedged in there really well, and you're going to have to pull them out with your hand. They're not just going to come out like you're hoping. And this one keeps coming out in pieces, so it's obviously beyond its life expectancy. Now the outer one had a similar issue, but it just had one break in it. Either way, that's what was causing our air in that case, since we were testing with it. When the air is leaking, obviously air is going to leak easier than hydraulic fluid will, because much thinner than, you know, fluid in general. However, it's a good way to test it so you can see what you have that is maybe not letting you have the pressure you need. Now you can test all these pressures out when they're in the tractor by using the test port. However, we were already past that. We knew that our testing, or our hydraulic pressure was much lower than what it needed to be. You'll see in here that these have a thin lip that's going to set inside, right there, sorry. So this thin lip that's going to set inside of this gap right here. Nope, I got that backwards. My mistake. The thick lip goes inside of that gap. Now it's also key to not twist this and not rip it. Now this is the one we were talking about. This one that goes on the inside of this piston, that's 70261097. The one that goes on the outside is 70261098. Very similar as far as gaskets go. The difference, obviously, one is much smaller and it goes on the inside, and one, the 1097, is discontinued. So if you break that or lose it, which is why we didn't originally take these apart, because we didn't want to take the chance of damaging them if they were working fine before, especially when we realized that that fly ball was kind of stuck, but realistically the fly ball definitely wasn't the issue. So what do you do in a dilemma like this where the seals look good? Personally, for myself, because it's so much money in hydraulic fluid to split this tractor, even though I'm doing the labor, I'm going to replace them. Okay. Turn it up. I'll be in good shape. Are you going to break it this time? Or are you going to put it together right so we don't break any clutches?
I put it together right, as long as you pay attention and make sure
Me?
it's not sliding off.
Oh my goodness, gonna blame everybody else. All right, you got, yeah, you know the pattern. I'll just hand you parts. But right here, see how we have all of these lined up, and they're, as we move this down, so like you can see me pushing on that clutch. These aren't all the way together yet. I'm showing you this because I'll show you what happens when you don't do it that way. Isn't that right, Gage?
It was you.
Back it up some, jeez. Don't shine it in my eyes either. So now at this point, we gotta go around because the bottom wave springs are just slightly outside of the the retaining wall of the ranges. I don't know how to explain it, but you'll see. It won't go all the way down because it'll smash that ring. You got to have them inside of those walls and underneath of where the other one's going to come on top of it. All right, so we skipped you through the painful steps. You already kind of seen most of how we fought with things. Now we're to the point where we're going to test, and you can see all the separator plates in here. So all these tabs, those are the separator plates that we put in. Of course, you got your clutch disc and then also the wave springs in there with them. You go down here into these ports, you can put air to it, and whenever you put air to it and then hit it, it should move those clutch, the separator plates, and actually the clutch itself. This is This is to simulate it being in the tractor and hydraulic pressure being applied to it. Now this is only 110 PSI, and you can see everything is moving fully. Now look back at the clip right here where we had those seals leaking, and you can see that these separator plates barely moved, maybe a 1/4 inch at best, and that was it. They should be moving a lot, and then what should be bleeding out of this hole right here next to the fly ball or near the fly ball, that should be all the excess pressure. So in the tractor, it'd be a bunch of hydraulic fluid coming out. However, here, you're gonna hear it probably on the mic. All that air, that's a bunch of air coming out of there. That's good, that's what we want. So now we can go to the next hole and we should see the next set move. Oh, my bad, it's the down here. And you can see everything is moving. Now it's not gonna move as much down here, mainly because it is compressed a lot more and it has a smaller gap to fill. Just like on this middle one, same thing. There's not nearly as much to fill. The hole over here bled off the excess pressure from this set of clutches. So each clutch set has its own bleed off for the hydraulic pressure, or in this case, the air. Whatever it can't use or whatever it's used up for moving the clutches, the excess gets bled off and just goes back into the case